Our first speaker today is Neal A. I'm delighted to be able to call him a colleague and also to introduce him to you today because I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful time listening to his comments. He's a foundation professor here at ASU in the English department. He's also the founder of the award-winning project Humanities. He has received his degree from Vanderbilt University, and I believe you were the first African-American student to get an English degree from Vanderbilt, a PhD from Vanderbilt. Yeah. He's a frequent public speaker, media commentator, op-ed contributor, and discussion facilitator. He's also the author or editor of 7 different books. So the bottom line is Neal A. has street cred in the academy and in the public realm. So without further ado, Neal.
Thank you, Bruce. Congratulations, graduate. Where are the graduates today? Well, higher. We need to see you. Yeah. And then the families and friends of the graduates, where are you? Families and friends of the graduates. All right. Where are the teachers and the mentors and the other supporters of these graduates? Where are you? Okay, all right. Well, is this a moment that makes you happy? How happy are you? Okay, all right. That's really happy, all right? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, I want you to do something to show me just how happy you are, okay? Because you just said you were ecstatic. You said you were ecstatic. You said you were very happy. Well, is that a rhetorical question?
That's up to you.
Okay, all right. Well, I want that if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. Now, if you're happy and you know it, shout hooray! Hooray! If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray! Hooray! If you're happy and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray! Hooray! If you're happy and you know it, do all 3. Hooray! 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 If you're happy and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Observation number 1. Everyday lessons in ableism are everywhere. Everywhere. You don't have to go look for them. Observation number 2. Happiness can be quite performative. I don't know if you are happy. I don't know if some of you played along with me to make me happy. Some of you probably thought, what on earth is he doing? I don't want to do that, and that's not making me happy because it's silly. All right? But graduates, what I want to say to you is being happy is a pretty tall order. Remember Bobby McFerrin, old folks in the room, who told us in 1988, don't worry, be happy. And then that 2006 Penguin movie showed us what it looks like when you can't sing, but you have happy feet. Older people in the room. And I have somebody has called these happy socks. And then it's not quite happy socks, but here's some that are hoppy socks. Okay? And then I picked up this from, an ASU stand, and it says you can bank on happy. Not quite sure what that means. But when I say it's a tall order, I mean, we can't just be happy, but the messages out there in the world tell us that you have to be so happy that when others look at you, they become happy. Now that's a pretty lot of happiness, is it not? Well, I want to sort of talk about this notion of happy, because it's okay to be happy, but I want graduates here that if you are happy and you know it, I want you to breathe in this moment. Nearly and neatly pack it into a little box of excitement that you feel that you can sort of bring out in the next moment after this reception, tonight, tomorrow, and the coming weeks. What this moment right now says to me, 2003 graduates, is not so much that you are happy, but that you have mostly colored within those lines. that you have mostly disciplined or been disciplined enough to get those assignments done, mostly on time, and that you have mostly preferred to go to class in person than to use that hybrid Zoom option. Whatever you've done, you've mostly done it right to get you here. But doing all of what it takes to get here probably didn't make you happy. What you have done individually and collectively with those in your corners, your support systems, your support teams, certainly deserves a hand clapping, a foot stomping, and a hooray if you're able to do that. With the families, friends, and supporters of the 2023 graduates, please identify yourselves so that we can acknowledge and thank you. Okay, notice I said identify yourselves, not about stomping and clapping, because those lessons are everywhere. While you savor the memories of this day and this moment, what comes after this reception, this day, and this personal milestone for you is in fact a future that, here's the cliche, holds both challenge and opportunity. What comes after this moment will test the very foundations laid in this department, in this college, by your courses, by your advisors, by these staff, by these faculty, colleagues, and mentors, all who love and support you and care about you, know that you're up to the challenges and will make those opportunities potentially opportunities that impact people beyond you. With so much happening in the world today that rocks the very foundations of who we are and what we believe in, graduates know that your happiness is not enough to sustain you or anyone else who is important to you. Know that so many are depending on you to set aside your happiness for a greater good. It is possible that you, as I, have learned that over the many years of being in the academy, that happiness can come in an ongoing pursuit of something I'm looking at now and come to know as social justice. So much of my personal and professional happiness comes from my service to others. If you're already doing justice work, thank you and keep doing it. Determine what you can do, if anything, to do more and to do better. But I want to sort of suggest to you that happiness, as Toni Morrison says in a commencement address quite like this one in 2011, that happiness is not enough. She said then, "The narrative of a worthy life is yours to write, graduates." I've often wished that Jefferson had not used that phrase, the pursuit of happiness, as the third right. Although I understand in the first draft was life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Of course, I, she writes, would have been one of those properties one had the right to pursue. So I suppose happiness is an ethical improvement over a life devoted to the acquisition of land, the acquisition of resources, the acquisition of slaves. Still, she writes, I would have preferred that he had written life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaningfulness or integrity or truth. While you savor the memories of this day and this moment, what comes after this reception, this day, and this personal milestone holds great promise again and challenges. With so much happening, know that so many people are depending on you, and you have a responsibility to move beyond your personal happiness. But here's what I want you to take away that has sort of resonated with me about this word happy. I was happy when I walked in and Kristen gave me a English bag. I was happy when Gavin came up and said, I took your class and I learned a lot. I want to box that up and hold it when I need it again, because there are going to be moments when I'm not happy. But Toni Morrison reminds me, and perhaps she can sort of add this to your repertoire, that I know that happiness has been real, if covert, the goal of your labors here. I know that it informs your choice of companions, the profession you will enter, but I urge you, please don't settle for happiness. It is not good enough. Of course you deserve it, but if that is all you have in mind, happiness, I want to suggest to you that personal success devoid of meaningfulness, free of a steady commitment to social justice, that's more than a barren life. It's a trivial one. It's looking good instead of being good. So if you're walking and speaking that truth that Morrison references, that only you can define, Perhaps you're not happy at all, just the opposite. Because once we start seeing it, we can't unsee it. You may already know that walking in your truth, a truth which you are committed to and with which you are at peace, can consciously or unconsciously threaten other folks. And just when you think things are going swimmingly, life's uncertainties will certainly interrupt and disrupt. Know also that your peace will sometimes attract those who want to steal that joy and that peace. But you know what? Let's go back to Queen Bee, who reminds us, or at least reminds me, that whatever that joy is, you can't let it do what? So, what I take away from this and this whole sort of spectrum of happiness is that there are people out there who see your happiness and they're going to try to take it away. So you got to turn back to Queen Bee, and not just Queen Bee, but maybe some Audre Lorde, who reminds us that you got to take care of yourselves in order to find peace that goes beyond happiness. So Audre Lorde says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Now, I didn't know this until I was preparing for this, thank you, Chris, that there is something out there in the world called a World Happiness Report. How many of you have heard of a World Happiness Report? Now, that is the strangest thing, but it tells us that here's what should make you happy. And it was started in probably, I want to say, July of 2011 by the United Nations. And what they did is it's like articles and rankings of national happiness based on respondent ratings in their own lives. It correlates with these factors and allegedly provides data to help guide public policy. Now take a look at these metrics here. These are the metrics for world happiness, business and economics. So just filter this through the lens of your own personal experience and see if you come up very happy on this scale. Citizen engagement, communications and technology, diversity, social issues, emotions, education and families, environment and energy, food and shelter, law and order, health, religion and ethics, transportation. And just so that you know, if you're thinking of vacation this summer, the happiest place on the planet for 6 years in a row happens to be Finland. So if you want to be happy, and I mean happy 24/7, Finland is a place we all need to go. Now, I'm not sure how happy that's going to make us all if we all go over there, or to make those who are there with us sort of coming in, given where we are about conversations on immigration, et cetera. By these standards, is there anybody who's really happy in a sustained and meaningful way? How exactly can happiness be sustained even when we experience this? Since happiness is like sand rushing through the hourglass, perhaps pursuing something more substantive for ourselves, what Morrison called the integrity, the meaningfulness, and the truth, is more realistic and doable, even as we have to define these things over and over and over again. Now, once upon a time, there was an old professor, and that old professor was at a 2003 graduation reception. And he gave those graduates this two-part assignment. Number one, find causes that inspire and challenge you. Find individuals and communities that acknowledge, appreciate, and encourage your creativity, your kind of disruption. Find individuals and communities that will not allow you to take refuge in a world of cynicism and complacency and apathy. Number two, commit to challenging and disrupting the status quo. Both Dr. MLK and Angela Davis give us specifics on what that looks like and what that means. Diversity without structural transformation simply brings those who are previously excluded into a system of racist and misogynistic, or as racist and misogynistic as it was before. There can be no diversity and inclusion without transformation and justice. And here's the one that I want really you to pay attention to, especially in this moment politically. Large segments of society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity. Graduates, as my poet friend Jenna Swartz reminds us, this moment is not just about the past and the present, but it's also about the future. She says, our future is actually the next breath. It's not about tomorrow, it's not about next week, it's not about the party, it's not about the dinner, it's the next breath. So it's very fragile. But she gives me comfort and inspiration when she writes about this future that is already in love with us. She says, "The future loves you already. The future is queer. The future is poetry. The future is every shade of brown. The future is indigenous. The future is reclamation. The future is accountable. The future is joyful. The future is honest. The future is ancient. The future is unimaginable. The future is breathing its first breath and crying its first cry. The future is a midwife. It's a birthing body, a moment of grief, a moment to grieve, a bowl of food, a shelter of belonging. The future strips the wallpaper and reveals the raw beauty of what never needed to be improved upon. The future is a forest grown from ash and an ocean free of trash. The future speaks truth to power until power is no longer a weapon, but a sacred tool to wield with care. The future throws its head back in laughter. The future takes up so much room we can't help but expand in her presence. The future eats fastest for breakfast. The future isn't waiting for you to be ready. The future loves you already. The future honks in the driveway. Get in, let's go. Finally, I've given you a postgraduate assignment. And what would a graduation talk be without some unsolicited advice? 2023 graduates, in pursuit of your, not necessarily your happily ever after, but in pursuit of your future happiness right now, in the here and now, try to do some good. Try to take care of yourselves and each other. And if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Stomp your feet. Shout hooray! Hooray! Congratulations, cheers to you graduates, and Happy New Year! That was a lot of happy, wasn't it?